Good morning everyone, welcome to this week's garden update. I've managed to squeeze quite a bit into this video, which will include, among other things, an update on my attempts at growing white sweet potatoes from one which I purchased from my local supermarket. I'll also show you how I've taken my battle against the pesky fruit fly to the next level over in the raised garden beds. I was just getting so annoyed with them during the week. I had enough, so some of my plants now are super protected. We'll take a look at that, plus lots more, so let's get into it now. Over the last few days, I got a huge amount of work done out here in the garden. It's definitely helped that the weather has been much cooler. I did lots of deadheading here in the zinnia patch. I just picked these two to show you that, as well as zinnias coming in different colours and shapes, they also come in different sizes too. Here on the left, it has slightly passed its best, but what you're looking at there is a variety called Purple Prince. And then this smaller one here is called, well, it's actually from a mixed pack, a Lilliput mix. I have a few more blooms of this smaller variety growing out the front in the newly planted patch. I'll show you them a little bit later on. I tidied up this lemongrass plant because there were an awful lot of self-seeded tomato plants that were using it as a climbing frame. I just pulled out a few stalks to take a look at them. It's really simple to propagate too. If you notice there at the tips where the bulb part is, you can see some roots. If I just pop that into the ground or a little pot now, I would have some new plants. I may actually even do that and give them away, or just have a backup in case this one doesn't survive the winter that's ahead of us. Back over to the lemongrass. I didn't remove all of the tomato plants because I don't mind a couple of them in here, but the other ones that I pulled out, let me show you what I did with them. I've hung them up on various archways around the garden, like what you can see just here. So while there are a few that were red, they've fully ripened, there's still quite a lot of green ones on these plants. So I'm hoping by leaving them up here exposed to the sun, give it a couple of days, these will all turn red and they'll be ready to pick. If you have a lot of trouble like I do with fruit fly in my area, in my experience, these garden pests leave the smaller tomato varieties well alone, which is amazing. So I never have to worry about bagging up these tiny little tomatoes. I've been growing these ones for years. My friend gave me some of these as little seedlings and they pop up every year. I never actually sow any seeds. They just seem to, find little spots around the garden. We're now over by the raised garden beds and I'm having a little giggle to myself because when I look in here, I just feel like it has gone into pest protection overdrive. I have covered so many capsicums, eggplants, chilies and tomatoes in here because I'm so sick of the fruit fly damaging all of these edibles. I spent hours in here this week because I was just so determined to get on top of this issue. So here, for example, I did do a few different techniques. I got out some more of the fruit protector bags, but in some areas like here, I used the netting that I purchased a few weeks ago to create this kind of fort, I guess you would say. And in here, I've got 4 different capsicums, and I'm just hoping now that it works. I'm hoping the fruit flies won't be able to access them. The reason why I'm a little bit doubtful is because the quality of this netting is quite, I would say, average. You can see along here that some of it started to fray, where there are actual areas, if you come down a bit lower, where there are big gaps. Like, look at this. So I've had to double up on the material. I must tie this up again just to make sure that there are no spots that those little pests can get through. The purchase of this low quality netting has definitely reminded me that buying the cheaper option is often not the best and you really end up getting what you paid for. I got around to clearing out these 3 beds I discovered that there were a lot of self-seeded Thai pink egg tomatoes. Look at this. It was such a score actually. I love when you find surprises like this. So I've bagged them up, and look at that. You can even tell, we take a close look at this. It's definitely agricultural grade netting as opposed to that other one I just showed you. This is really good quality, and even just moving it around like that, there's no way that it's gonna rip. Anyway, so I've got a whole load of bonus tomatoes, and then I ended up planting out this spot with some more zinnias. These are a gorgeous, like light, almost lemon coloured zinnia called Isabella. Over in this spot, I'm going to put in a few sweet potato slips. I'll show you them in a sec. And then over here, I still need to clear it out a bit more. I have sowed a few climbing beans in here. Should be lots of time to get them growing and harvesting from them. I think they're a quick growing variety, about 60, 70 days. Do you remember a while ago I told you that I was going to try and grow some of these white sweet potatoes that I saw for sale in my local IGA? Well, I'm about to do some planting. Before we get into it, I just want to apologise for that background noise. I think everyone has their mowers out tonight. So what you're looking at here is a white sweet potato which I put into some water a few weeks back, and the purpose of doing this was to grow these slips, which are pretty much just shoots which come off from the skin. Sorry, that was a spider. I didn't notice it. I don't know how he or she got onto this plant because I've had her on the windowsill up until right now, taking it out to show you. Anyway, okay, so then what I did after some of these shoots came up was I broke off one of the slips just like this, and then I put them into water. They root in water really easily, and now all I have to do is pop this whole thing in the ground. I'll be popping those two into this bed. I know I explained this before a few weeks back, but just for anyone who's new to gardening. So sweet potatoes are different to regular potatoes. When you're growing a regular potato, you just put the whole thing in the ground. But with sweet potatoes, it's best to grow slips first. And it's the slips which I just showed you. That's where you pop in the ground. For the dahlia update this week, very unusually, even though I still have a lot more plants that have yet to flower, there is only one new variety which has opened up this week. Let's take a closer look. It's hiding down here. I almost missed it. This gorgeous flower is called Wine Dot. It has light pink petals with speckles of maroon. I was doing so much weeding here as well that I ended up moving those table and chairs over to this spot. I must move them back, but you can see there's lots of dead weeds on the ground. I haven't even got around to clearing it up. I have to say, out of all of the new varieties I purchased this year, this dahlia called Tartan is in my top 3. These are the other Lilliput zinnia flowers which I had mentioned at the beginning of the video. I have 4 here, a dark orange, 2 light orange and a pink. I just picked them all off, the first little mini harvest from this patch. I showed you this spot maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm happy to say that all the plants seem to have started to take off. And down here, all of these are the bush beans, which are doing really well. There's germination along here at the edge of the bed of all of these different lemons and cucumbers. This Armenian striped cucumber, while it hasn't set any fruit yet, there are a few flowers. There's the crookneck squash. So the squash and the Armenian striped cucumber were 2 plants I transferred from the back garden, and they seem to have settled in nicely. Over there is where I picked that little bunch of zinnias, so loads of zinnias, black-eyed Susan, along here straw flowers and a few different varieties of basil. I know I've shown you this before, but I do like to have you know, a few updates on an area. I don't want to just go from planting the seeds to them being in full colour. You know, it's nice to take a look at them at different stages. So we have a row of sunflowers, and in front of them are loads of different coloured globe amaranths. And then over here is a bunch of glass gem corn. They are growing from these, which I saved from last year's crop. They're one of the easiest seeds to save, along with beans, I reckon. Well, that's just my opinion. So all I did was I allowed these cobs to dry on the plant, and then I stored them in a dark spot until a few weeks ago, and I took them out. You just, using your thumb, you just push down like this. See how easily they come off? Then I just sowed some of these, and look what they've become. Nice, healthy little plants. You know, I completely forgot that I popped an eggplant in here back in mid-spring, and it wasn't until I started to cut back some of these plants in this area that I rediscovered it. The poor thing. I was considering digging it out, but then I just pruned the plants back even more. And I'm just going to let it grow here, because I do like, you know, intermingling edibles with flowers. Now, although it does look like it's had some flea beetle damage, if we take a look underneath the foliage, it does actually have some eggplants on it. This variety is called Fairy Tale. These fruit are quite small. They're a very pretty shade of purple with these little white stripes. I reckon with a little bit of TLC, I'll give it a feed of sea salt, do a little bit of checking around to see if I can spot any of the flea beetles and remove them. I'll probably do that now on a daily basis until it starts to, you know, get healthier and happier, more lush. But I have given it quite a bit of space now, so hopefully it will fill out this spot. I'll be able to tie it up the stake, and crossing our fingers, in about a month's time there will be a lot of fairy tale eggplants to harvest from this little spot. We'll see. I guess it's only time that will tell whether that fairy tale eggplant will, you know, recover from the flea beetle damage. Usually with flea beetles, if they do attack a larger, more established plant, the plant seems to have enough energy and resilience to survive. I'm just looking at it now, it's still looking pretty sad. Well, that's about it for this week, everyone. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I will see you again next Friday. Until then, take care, stay safe, and happy gardening.